Hey everybody, this is Peter with Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to be taking a look at another role-playing book from Free League Publishing. If you've seen any of our videos here on the channel, you know that we are big fans of Free League Publishing, and one of the things that really excites us is the fact that they get to make games set in Middle-earth. So the world, the setting of The Lord of the Rings by Tolkien, The Hobbit, all of that. And they recently sent us a copy of one of their latest books, and that is The One Ring, Moria Through the Doors of Durin. So this is for their game The One Ring, which as it sounds is set in Middle Earth, and now we have an expansion specifically so that you and your players can delve deep, maybe too deep, into the mines of Moria, into Khazad-dûm, the kingdom, the ancient kingdom of the dwarves of Middle-earth. So very exciting. I'm super excited that they sent us a copy of this book. I've been reading through it, seeing what all is inside it, and I can't wait to show it to you. So we're going to take the camera down to the table. We're going to open up the book and we're going to flip through it, showing you an overview of what you'll be getting if you grab a copy of this book. So let's go ahead, and without further ado, let's head down to the table. All right, everybody, so we're down to the table with The One Ring, Moria Through the Doors of Durin by Free League Publishing. We're going to flip the book over to the back, and we will read the description back there. For long ages, the great city of the Dwarodelph was the seat of dwarven kings. Deep they delved beneath the roots of the mountains in search of Mithril, the fabled Moria silver. Wonders they wrought there by the light of crystal lamps, but 1,000 years ago Durin's bane arose and drove the dwarves from their halls. The city fell into darkness, becoming an abode of orcs, goblins, and worse. But now there is hope. Countless orcs perished at the Battle of Five Armies, and it may be the halls of Durin lie empty once more, waiting to be reclaimed by those with the courage to face the long dark under the mountain. Maybe there are piles of treasure there, waiting to be claimed. Maybe Mithril still glimmers in the mind under Caradhras. Cross the dread threshold, adventurer, and delve deep. Moria, Through the Doors of Durin is a supplement for The One Ring, the official tabletop role-playing game based on the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. Set in the years before Balin's doomed expedition, this supplement contains a horde of patrons, landmarks, foes, encounters, and treasures that a lore master can use to construct their own adventures in Moria, from a single desperate journey in the dark to a grand campaign to retake Durin's halls. All right, so they make it sound pretty amazing, like there's a lot to be had here, and I will tell you, they are right. There's lots to be had inside this book, but before we even open the cover, let me say I love this beautiful cover. I appreciate the color. I love the blues and the really bright white of the doors of Durin's doors. Really love that. We have our adventurers here in dark, kind of like the mouth of a cave almost, with the trees coming up around it and then the ground underneath. We have just a little bit here reflecting in the water outside the doors. And so just a really big fan of this beautiful work of art for the cover. And Free League Publishing, I think, always does a really great job with their art. I know some people don't always love the slight modeled look to some of the art that they use, especially here with The One Ring. But I personally think it's really, really nice. And I love that we get the Doors of Durin here on the cover itself. So again, this is the version of this book for The One Ring. There is another version of this book, and it's for their 5th edition version of the game, The Lord of the Rings role-playing. But it's another Moria book. They are almost word for word the same book, but The One Ring is Free League Publishing's kind of original version for this game. It involves rolling some D12s and D6s, and combat works differently than it does in the 5e version. So we'll take a look at that one in a different video, but in this one we are looking at this book, and we're going to go ahead and open it up, and we're going to see what is inside. All right, let's open it up. And inside on the end pages, we get probably one of my favorite maps in quite a long time. I am in love with this map for Moria that they created. We get a bird's eye top down view of Moria here at the top of the map, and then we get a cross section. So I'm reminded of some of the books that I would see as a kid in my school library of like a cross section of a ship looking like it was cut in half, and I could just see on the inside. That's what this is. It's the mountain cut in half, and now we can see kind of the anthill, right? That is the mine of Moria or Khazad-dûm. So I love that. I think it's a great look for a map for especially this kind of dungeon that we're going into with Moria. And there are numbered locations throughout, and up here is the legend that you can follow with the numbers to see what it is, what section it is that you're looking at. Those will correspond with some areas later mentioned in the book. Again, this is on the front end pages and the back end pages, but not only that, Free League has provided us with a fantastic oversized version of the same map as well. You do not need to tear this map out. It is loose in the book. It's at the back of the book, and you get the same look, but it's just bigger. And I think that's fantastic. I love that I could put this down in front of my players, giving them a much better look at the map rather than just trying to show them the end pages of the book itself. And on the back of the map, they actually provide us something else that doesn't specifically have anything to do with the Moria book specifically, but combat in this game can work a little bit differently. And so they have the idea of opening volleys and stances for the adventurers. When they go into combat, they can choose to either be in a forward position, an open position, defensive, or rearward. And that is laid out here on this circular grid, which I think is pretty awesome. And the idea being that in the starter set, they had given these little teeny cards that had this information on it. But with this being this large, we can actually put our miniatures in those different rings, stating where we are. There's spaces here also then for the monsters, the creatures that the player heroes are fighting against. They've got engaged enemy locations and foes that are standing back. And so this is just a beautifully laid out map that can be utilized at the table with miniatures to better help the players visualize where they are in stances, whether they're close combat or ranged, and exactly in close combat, are they forward, are they open, or are they defensive? And so I think this is a really, really cool way for Free League to support the combat in this game by providing this on the back of this map. I am thoroughly impressed. And again, something like this is where I really think I see the love that Free League has for their games when they're making them, when they provide something that wasn't exactly necessary, but is going to make the play at the table that much better for lore masters and players. So real quick, had to point out that map. It's phenomenal. I love that it's at the end pages. It is also, though, on that huge layout map that you can utilize at the table. All right, so beyond the map, let's get into the rest of this book. So we have our opening index, or our contents here, our content pages, and we can see here that the book itself is broken down into mostly 5 main areas, as well as then a little bit of extra information here in the appendix, and then a whole big section here at the end of the book, around almost like, I think it's like 50 pages or so, all about solo play in the Mine of Moria. I am not specifically a solo player when it comes to role-playing games, but that is something that Free League is really diving into, and that is making their games more available to more players. So you have players who have a hard time getting a group together to play, and so they want to make sure that they have great solo rules, not just for the game itself, but for these expansions that they're putting out. And that, I think, is phenomenal. It's the same way that Free League is providing a 5e version of all of these games as well. So you have players out there who they already know 5th edition, especially with combat and the way that they roll skill checks, and that's what they like to utilize. They don't want to learn a whole new game, whole cloth. So they provide this same book, but with 5e in mind. And so players who already want to play that, lore masters who want to run 5e, they can. They can pick up that book. It's all of this same content, just focused on 5e play. And again, mostly that carries over in the combat that is used in 5th edition. With that in mind, though, again, I just think Free League does a great job with trying to take their games and make it more accessible for more players. So we have our introduction, which just gives us a little bit of history on Moria or Khazad-dûm. And then we have a whole section here about how to utilize Moria in your game, in your campaign. How do you utilize it? Then we have a whole section about journeying into Moria and how the act of a journey works inside Moria, because journeying is one of the pillars of the Lord of the Rings games, the One Ring game. So they want to give us some ways that is going to differ from journeys in the rest of the game, because the rest of the game you're traveling overland and you're traveling these great huge distances. And in this, we're in a singular location. It is still massive, and journeys are still going to be necessary, but they're going to look a little bit different. And so we get some different jobs to utilize here in journeys. And then we have a whole section on fell foes, so all of the creatures that our players are going to be coming up against in Moria. And then we have a section on the mansions of the dwarves. And this is going to be the largest singular section in the book, because it is filled with tons and tons of locations. Each one of these locations is going to have a background. It's going to talk about the location. It's going to talk about schemes and troubles that are happening in that location. And so that here is the biggest part of the book. And like I said, then that follows with some appendix, and then also the solo play rules. So let's go ahead and keep on going. Another thing that I love about Free League books, I love the double page art at the beginning of every chapter. We have a great picture here. Again, we see nice close-up look at the doors of Durin, and now we have the view that I think a lot of us recognize from specifically the movies, where we have the door here hidden in this huge cliff face, and then we have the lake out front with the monster in the lake. But as we get into the introduction, we read a lot about Moria itself. So this is information that the lore master can definitely and probably should definitely share with the players, letting them know about the location that they're going to be interacting with. And so we've got a great overview of that. We have this here, nice little bit of summary for Moria itself, and then talking about the overview of this location and the book. And then we get into the city and the mines location. So we find out that Moria is just a word in Elvish for black pit, and it's talking about the mines. And so really the city is known as Khazad-dûm, and this is an ancient dwarven home founded by the first dwarf Durin. And so just really, really cool information. I love this specific set of 2 pages because we get a chronological view of the city of Khazad-dûm from the First Age all the way down to the Third Age, where the Fellowship itself passes through the mine of Moria. A lot of really cool things here. And then in red, I appreciate that it stands out. Right here in red is the year that this book, that this adventure is supposed to be taking place in. It says here 2965. After the deaths of so many goblins at Erebor, some heroes risk entering Moria once again, the present day, for purposes of this guide. So we have some information that happens before present day, a little bit of information that happens after present day again. So the Fellowship, in the idea, the setting of this book, the Fellowship has not yet come to Moria, but Balin has not gone on his adventure into the mine yet. You were going there before that, but after Bilbo and Gandalf have had their adventure in The Hobbit. So you're in between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. and you're still about 20 or so years, 24 years before Balin even tries to go in to the mine of Moria. So really cool layout here. Again, this is great information for, again, not just the lore master, but for all of the players to have. Another great piece of artwork opening chapter 2. I love here that we have our adventurers crossing one of the many, many bridges here in Khazad-dûm, and we have some goblins, some orcs overlooking. So that's something also, I'll go ahead and mention it. The fact that in this book, multiple times you have the word goblin used and you have the word orc used. But when it comes down to actually, there is no difference. Goblin and orc, two different words, same creatures. Tolkien used the word goblin in The Hobbit, and then he used the word orc in the Lord of the Rings. And one of the reasons we know that they're the same creature is also because one of the swords in the books is called Orcrist, O-R-C-I-S-T, Orcrist. But when it's translated, that means goblin cleaver. So orc translates into goblin. So just a real throw that in there real quick. If you hear me say goblin, I mean orc, and vice versa. So this next section, chapter 2, is all about utilizing Moria in your campaign. And what they suggest here is that they've got some patrons for you to utilize. If you have the core rulebook, you know that patrons interact with your player heroes. They are the ones who give the player heroes the tasks to go out and do. And so they also sometimes provide a place for the players to go back and rest. Because in this game, you have to go back and have like long rest. A long rest in this game is not just 8 hours. It is a long period of time. It's like the Fellowship staying in Rivendell for like weeks, where they take some time to recoup themselves. And so they introduce some patrons here in the book, and these patrons will have things for the players to do. And also they have some ideas, some focuses for the campaign. So we have, are your players going to be searching for treasure? And then they give you here the suggested patrons that you might utilize specifically for this campaign focus. And underneath each one of these focuses are 3 or so specific focuses. So like underneath searching for treasure, we have legends of treasure, stealing from the orcs, or rival thieves. So you have your main focus and then a sub focus underneath that. We have searching for mithril, and so here we go, finding mithril. There's the perilous path. There's vengeance specifically, or questing for ring lore. Maybe you're being sent out to find out more information about the rings of power. So lots of different ideas there for your campaign focus. And now we get into some of the non-player characters that they provide us in this book, some of which are suggested as patrons. So we get into Moria and the wider world. They talk about the dwarves and Durin's folk. We are specifically introduced to Frora, who is one that can be utilized as a patron. And then we're also introduced to Mjolin, which is another dwarf that you can utilize there. And some of these people have been mentioned in previous books. So right here it says under Lord Mjolin of Harmelt, we specifically notice that there's a book called Runes of the Lost Realm, and that he is found on page 25 of that book. Again, Free League does a great job of not just saying, hey, this is somebody that you may have read about before, but they tell you exactly which book, they tell you exactly which page, which is super helpful. So lots of different peoples. These are not all people who are in Moria, but these again are people who might be patrons and or foes that, or NPCs that your player heroes might interact with outside of or possibly inside of Moria. Now, the next section I think is super cool, and that is a name of ill omen. All the time in role-playing games, you are going to be wanting to seed the adventures. You're going to want to be helping the players to know what it is that they need to do when they get to the place that you're trying to get them to. And this is filled with all sorts of rumors. They're on rollable tables if you want to roll for it, or you can just choose one. But when your players make lore rolls trying to find out information about Moria before they go there, they're going to possibly interact with some of these people, and they're going to ask them about Moria. And if they fail their lore roll, there's a whole chart for false rumors. Fantastic. But there is also a rollable chart here for genuine rumors if your players get a successful roll. And then they even have two other tables, one for if they roll the lore roll, but with that extra success that happens in this game. And that's when they roll that D6, and on the success die, they get the T symbol. And that's on the 6th side of the die. Then they get this extra information about a famous landmark. And then if they get more than one of those T symbols, again on the 6th side of the die, you can give them information about an obscure landmark. And each of these landmarks are here in this book. We have page numbers beside each one of them. And so you can utilize these rollable charts to help them gain rumors about these locations. And when you turn to these pages, the rumor information is on that landmark. And so when you get to each one of these landmarks later in the book, the mansions of the dwarves, then each one of those landmarks has a rumor section, and you just go there and you can provide them with that rumor. So it's going to be a truthful rumor. And again, these are only given when they have a extra successful lore roll. The next section we get is Running Moria, and it dives into the different themes that they think would make great sense for lore masters to utilize when running this location. And specifically, they talk here a little bit about the idea that Moria is not really a dungeon in the sense that a lot of lore masters might know already from other role-playing games that they have run in the past. And that is because not every room is meant to have tons of creatures that you're going to be fighting, and not every room is a puzzle or a trap. This is a vast network of rooms and tunnels and bridges of an ancient kingdom that is vastly empty, even though there may be large bands of orcs around and other creatures. There's going to be a lot of emptiness as well in this location, and they don't want you to have to worry about there being a lot of sameness or sameness throughout. So they give you some ideas of different themes that you could utilize for different trips that your player heroes make into Moria. I mean, because the idea here is that it could be a one and done visiting Moria. Maybe there's a very specific reason they're there, and they go there for that reason, and then they get out. This is not a location where your players are going to go in and scour the entire place, get rid of all of the bad guys, and then this is their new location that they're going to run their base out of, right? This is not that kind of location. But they give you these very different themes to utilize to kind of help the lore master wrap their head around how they're going to be describing Moria as their players go through it. They give you themes of wonder, talking about how vast and intricate beyond imagination the city is, ideas about the dark and secret ways to travel through it. And each one of these little themes, or these little sub-themes, have some bullet points with some description to get the lore master's juices flowing, their creative juices flowing. So lots of different things throughout there. So the very first one, again, themes of wonder, the ancient work of giants, the land where our fathers worked of old, piles of gold and jewels, the city reclaimed. So lots of different things through there. And then themes of sorrow and fear, the long and lonely dark, toil and hunger. There is no safe place. So you can just get some of these titles here are evocative enough that you understand what it is that they're going to be discussing. But let's dive into this one specifically a little bit more close. There is no safe place. There are truly safe places in Moria, but they are few and secret. For the most part, there is nowhere the company can rest where they will be completely secure, always mentioning something to sow doubt in the minds of the players. For example, the Fellowship made camp in a guard room with an uncapped well, and Pippin feared something might crawl out of it as they slept to engender similar discomfort. You could mention cracks, air shafts, cave mouths, doors locked from the far side, trap doors, suspected secret passages, unnoticed side entrances. There are strange noises and smells, and ask the player heroes to describe their own speculation or worries in character, especially if they are close to being miserable. And miserable was with a capital M because that's one of the conditions that your player characters can have. So lots of really great stuff here for getting the lore master ready to run this game. Now, our next chapter, chapter 3, gets into the ideas of journeys. Again, that's one of the core pillars of the One Ring role-playing game. So journeys in the dark, another really great piece of art here. I really like this one a lot. This one very much invokes that battle with the orcs and the troll that is in the Lord of the Rings book and film. Really cool piece. And then we get some information again about the traveling, what that's going to look like, the company being underground, the idea that food is going to be sparse, water's going to be sparse. There's information about different types of perils that they may run across, and then the journey sequence itself. So if you've played this game before, you're familiar with the journey sequence. If not, you're going to be setting a path, you're going to be making your marching tests, and then you're going to end the journey. And these are from one place to the next when you're traveling across the map of Moria. And when you make those tests, everybody is going to be taking on different roles, and so the roles here are a little bit different than when you're outside of Moria. So the roles that they have here, we have scouts, we have lookouts, and we have delvers. So those are the three roles that your players have the option of utilizing here in the journey sequence. Lots of more information here about describing Moria. Lots of rollable tables for things that they might come across or up against. And then we do have a random chamber generator here, because even though on that opening map we have a lot of places that are specifically called out, that is not everything there is in Moria. And so we have the random chamber generator that you can utilize to create spaces for your players. It could be a place to rest, could be a place that's flooded, could be a place that's been shattered by an earthquake. Lots of different options here, multiple pages for that. We also have random orc band generator, as you can create more creatures or groups of creatures for the players to go up against. Now we're into chapter 4, the Fell Foes. Getting a little bit of a Balrog image here. We've got the whip. You have looks like a sword here, almost a fire. But like a lot of images of the Balrog, not quite super descriptive, right? Leaves a lot to the imagination. They even give us a little bit of darkness here, so if we want to envision wings, which if you are somebody who is really into Lord of the Rings, a lot of people are, go up against each other, whether the Balrog had wings or not. But we can get into the Orcs of Moria, and they actually give us different groups of orcs that populate this location. We have the Orcs of Moria, we have the Orcs of Udun. I'm not going to get into each and every one of these just because there's a lot of information for them. There's the Orcs of Mordor. Each one of these has groups, and then some of them even have like named orcs. We have Gorgal, son of Bolg here, and they have art as well. Mention here slave dwarves and dwarven haunts, and then we have the Balrog. So this is the big one. This is the one that most of you checking in on this video, you're wanting to know about the Balrog. And there's the tale of the Balrog is here, so we get a little bit of lore, we get some unanswered questions, and we do get a stat block here. I'm going to pull it up a little bit closer to the camera. We do get a stat block for Durin's Bane, the Balrog, and we can see here some pretty big numbers for this creature. Mighty and terrible, it says. This is not supposed to be a creature that your player characters are going to be able to defeat. I'm just going to put it that way. We have epic level Gandalf, right, fighting the Balrog, and even he eventually dies and has to come back. So, spoilers, sorry. But the Balrog is here for you to possibly showcase to your players if they delve deep enough into the mine. And then we get other foul things that the players come up against: cave bats, marrow eaters, tappers, stone toads. All right, so here we are at chapter 5, the Mansions of the Dwarves. This is the big chapter. It takes up the vast majority of the book. I like the art here because it focuses in on two little adventurers with their torch, and the little bit that torch helps to showcase the space, and then just the vastness of the hall here that they're in with the huge columns, but everything else is in dark. Just how, to me, scary this location can be, because it's just so huge, and this is just one space in this location. Pretty awesome. I like the art. I know some people might not like it because it doesn't show enough, but I think that for this particular chapter and what it's supposed to evoke, I think this actually does a really great job. Now, this chapter, like I said, is huge. There's no way that we can go through the whole thing. And so what I'm going to do is tell you that here at the opening of the chapter, we do get a section on the ways in and out of Moria, which is going to be very important for your player characters to find out. There is here a chart of the different entrances, and they are showcased by landmarks. So we have the location name, we have the landmark name, we have the region that the entrance is in. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different regions. The vast majority of them, of these locations, are in the mountains of Moria, but there's also the Dimril Dell, the West Moria, the Deeps, and the Dwarodelf, and then just some notes about it. But the rest of the chapter is broken really down by the regions, and within the regions, the locations and landmarks, okay? So what I'm going to do is really, again, I'm going to go back to the content page just for a way to show you how this is broken down. So in the content page, you can see here in this, the Mansions of the Dwarves, that we have the different regions. We have the Dimril Dale, and then we have 3 different landmarks, each landmark having a background, the locations, and then also schemes and trouble. Then we have Old Moria. We also have the Dwarodelf, the Mountains of Moria, the Road, West Moria, the Deeps, and the Mines. And in each one of these regions, we have different landmarks, and within those landmarks, we have a background, and we have a location, and then we have the schemes and troubles. So real quickly, we'll go ahead and jump to one of these landmarks, and let's go to the big one. Let's go to the Balrog's Throne. That's going to be on page 170. So we're just going to jump to that. If you don't want to see this, if you're going to be a player, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler. So warning, if you're going to be a player in this game and you don't want to spoil something for yourself, don't look. But if you're a lore master, go ahead and check it out. So we have the Balrog's Throne. We see here that the location, the landmark, is a hidden landmark. So some of these are going to be hidden, some of these are going to be known. Each one of these has a rumor. So this one's very, very small. It's just a single sentence. We have some old lore that is given. And then we have the background of the landmark, and then we have locations within the landmark. Each one of these landmarks comes with some sort of art for it, whether it be a creature or whether it be a map for the landmark itself. And then the landmark has its locations here that are numbered, and it gives you some information about each one of those locations. And then you do have a small section about schemes and troubles that are taking place at that landmark. And that is how each one of these landmarks are given. And there's around like 30 some landmarks that are already made for you in this chapter. And this chapter is super amazing. It does a great job of giving you kind of just enough information as the lore master to prepare the landmark, but also gives you some room to grow that area. So I found this chapter to be super exciting, and I think you will as well. So again, that's the vast majority of the book. After that, we just get into the appendix. And in the appendix, we get the information about we get some information about Aragorn's journey through Moria, and I believe also then Gandalf's. We get some information on Mithril. We get information on the different types of magical treasure here in Moria. And then we get some information about dwarves of Nogrod and Belegost. And then the rest of the book is all solo play. So we're not going to dive into the solo play. Again, that's kind of a personal thing for me. I love that they make that available, but I know that I'm never going to end up playing this game in a solo mode. I will only be playing with a party of players. So I love that they make it available. And if you are really into solo play, I would love for you to comment in the section of this video and let me know about solo play. If you've done it in any game, whether it's this game or another game, I'd love to hear your thoughts on solo play. Maybe you can sell me on solo play, whether it be in the One Ring or any other game. So yeah, that is the rest of the book, is all the solo play information. And that is the One Ring Moria Through the Doors of Durin. There's so much in this book. It is huge, and just like Moria itself, it is vast and exciting and scary and wonderful. And let's go ahead and come back up from the table, and I'll give you my final thoughts on this book, The One Ring Moria Through the Doors of Durin. All right, everybody, so we're back up from the table, having just finished taking a look at The One Ring Moria Through the Doors of Durin by Free League Publishing. And as I'm sure you could tell from the flip through, I am incredibly excited and incredibly impressed with this book. I am so thankful to Free League Publishing for having decided to focus an entire book on this one location. It is one of the most iconic locations through all of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, for the books as well as the movie. You get a little bit of everything in those stories with this location. You get some great dialogue, you get some great action sequences, the fighting of with the orcs and the troll, and the discussion that is had between Gandalf and Frodo about Bilbo deciding to take pity, to save Gollum rather than kill him earlier in The Hobbit. And then you also get the iconic fight sequence between Gandalf and the Balrog. So there's just so much to love about this specific setting, and you can see that the people over at Free League also absolutely love Moria, and they showed us their love by publishing this massive book for their role-playing game. So I can't wait to get this book to my table with my players. Some of the biggest pros for this book for me is the myriad of locations that I can take my players to, the added patrons that can interact with my players, And then also, I really love that brand new massive map that I can take out of the book. I can lay it out and I can show them this really cool cross section of Moria. And then flipping it over, I love that they give us that extra way of showcasing the way that combat works in this game, and you can use that with your miniatures. So really grateful that they added that nice additional bit, and it's already loose in the book. I don't have to feel like I'm tearing it out. That's great. So just so much to love about this book, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it's helped you make a decision if this is the right book for you and your players at your table. Don't forget though, you can't just get this one book to play the full game. You also need the core rulebook or the starter set from Free League Publishing in order to utilize this expansion. But everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it helped you. If it did, give it a like, maybe subscribe to our channel as well, checking out all of the other fantastic videos that we are putting out on a daily basis. Don't forget to head on over to freeleaguepublishing.com to pick up your books or check out all the other amazing games they're making. You can also go to tabletopgamingguild.com to learn a little bit more about us and what we're up to. Everybody, until we talk again, keep on playing games.